Well, guys, Super Bowl 57 has come and gone. All the hype, anticipation, building up to it. And I got to say, Matt, we had a really impressive game. I think it lived up to the hype, a very high-scoring affair. And, Matt, if there's anything that we've learned from Super Bowl 57, it's this. In life, three things are certain: death, taxes, and Patrick Mahomes coming back in the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl to deliver his team the victory, even doing it on a bum ankle.
You know, in the hours and hours and hours of build-up before the Super Bowl actually starts, you watch the TV pregame shows that never seem to end. And one of the segments was they had an interview with Patrick Mahomes. And I really enjoyed one of the things he said. He was talking about Tom Brady and trying to catch Tom Brady. He says it's a real treat to have someone that he's trying to catch. And now that Tom Brady is, moving on, we think he's retired for the second time. Hopefully this time is the actual real time. But now that Brady has left the league, it opens the door for who is going to take that face of the league quarterback mantle. And Patrick Mahomes is already being paid like it. He now has 2 Super Bowl rings in the last 4 years. So maybe he is that guy. So I thought that was really interesting, and we'll have to see if Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen and this crop of young quarterbacks, they're taking the league onto the next era, and Mahomes will probably be at the top of it for a very long time.
It's interesting. You mentioned Josh Allen. Now, there was all this talk coming into this season that it's going to be between the Bills and the Chiefs, probably in the AFC Championship, especially with what we got in that divisional game last year. But you can't throw out Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who have been impressive 2 straight years in the AFC Championship. Obviously, they went on to the Super Bowl last year. But when you also look in that AFC, aside from Mahomes, aside from Burrow, aside from Allen, you also have the Lamar Jacksons of the world. You have the Justin Herberts of the world. You have the a lot of these guys coming out of the AFC who you're looking at and you're like, okay, this can be a very deep conference for years to come. But at the end of the day, I definitely see the Kansas City Chiefs duplicating the New England Patriots success of when pretty much all throughout the 2000s and 2010s, you saw the Patriots in the Super Bowl year after year after year. So if there's anyone who can threaten Brady's 7 Super Bowl championships, it's definitely Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and Andy Reid can play the Bill Belichick role of being that head coach. And you look at the AFC, and we thought, there's arguments to be made for a couple of teams for actually being Super Bowl champions. But going back to the beginning of the year, we looked at the NFC and went, this whole thing's wide for being open, right? And the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles put together the season that they did, now I think people thought the Philadelphia Eagles could make the playoffs. I don't think anybody expected this run from Jalen Hurts and that Eagles squad. The season that they had, even if it ended in disappointment and not getting the Super Bowl championship and hoisting the Lombardi trophy, I mean, they have to feel pretty good about their future with, of course, Jalen Hurts under center. And Hurts went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in this game, went right at the Kansas City Chiefs, didn't back down. I mean, 3 rushing touchdowns. He certainly put his name on the map. If people weren't fully believing in Hurts and these Philadelphia Eagles, even though they lost against Kansas City, I think they're starting to believe now. So, and there's some really good teams also in the NFC that didn't make it, including the 49ers right down the road. So the NFL, I think, is in a really good place, a really competitive place for years to come.
I definitely like to see that. The interesting thing about Jalen Hurts, this was someone who in the national championship game in college when he was with Alabama got benched for Tua Tagovailoa to come in. Jalen goes to Oklahoma, becomes a Heisman Trophy finalist. And just to look at his journey and the amount of adversity this kid has overcome to be where he's at on a Super Bowl stage, you look at him, remember, he wasn't even a first-round draft pick. He came out in the second round, which is still high, but it's no first-round draft pick. So you have, 32 guys, however many guys selected in front of him, however many quarterbacks. So I think, if anything, that's just going to continue to motivate Jalen Hurts. And the one thing you guys don't want is a pissed-off, motivated Jalen Hurts, because we saw what happened this year with that. And next year, like you said, Matt, looking at the AFC next year, I can promise you this, and mark my words right now, it's going to be one of these 3 teams in the Super Bowl representing the AFC next year. The Cincinnati Bengals, the Buffalo Bills, or the Kansas City Chiefs. When I look at the NFC, there's not 3 teams I can name off the top of my head. I can say the 49ers will probably be in the mix. The Eagles will probably be in the mix. Who knows where Aaron Rodgers goes? There's so many other things, but I think the AFC is going to continue this dominant streak for a significant period of time, kind of like we saw with Manning, Brady, and Roethlisberger coming out of the AFC for all those years.
Well, there are a bunch of AFC teams that are now going to use what Kevin just said as motivation to try and get back there. I think it's a little more deep than 3 teams in the AFC, and I think there's teams on the up and coming, but we'll have to wait and see with next season. But going back to the game tonight and specifically what we saw. I mean, tonight was a night of firsts in so many ways.
Yeah.
Two black quarterbacks going against each other for the first time in the Super Bowl. You had the Kelsey brothers, two brothers playing against each other in the Super Bowl for the first time, which was really cool. If I'm not mistaken, the flyover before kickoff was done by the first all-female pilot team that did that. So this was a real cool Super Bowl in terms of first. This wasn't a first, too, but the Chiefs, I think, had back-to-back rookies, or they had two rookies score touchdowns in this game. It's the first time since like the 1960s or something like that two rookies have scored for the same team in a Super Bowl. So a lot of cool parts of this game. Cool little, maybe you call it like trivia moments
Nuggets,
down the road
yeah.
from this game. And just it piles onto what ended up being an extremely entertaining game. Now, I know the end was underwhelming for a lot of people with the penalty call and what have you, but we got an entertaining game of football, which is almost all you can ask for.
Exactly. It's definitely not like that Rams-Patriots Super Bowl. What was that, 5 years ago when it was so low scoring? It was like, what, 13-9 or 11? I can't even remember. That's how low scoring it was. But, yeah, we definitely got our money's worth with this. You mentioned the controversial play at the end, the defensive holding on the Eagles when Patrick Mahomes was looking for Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, you hate to see moments like that dictate the outcome of the game. Mm-hmm. You understand why the official threw the flag, and when you look at it, it's pretty textbook. If you just look at the textbook of what defensive holding is and the fact that he technically made contact with Juju, pulled him around before spin. Now, a lot of referees and officials will say, I probably would not call that there, or I would just let them battle it out. But it was just one of those things. It was unfortunate to see that happen and to ultimately dictate the outcome of the game. But like I say, to everyone on Twitter and all these people complaining about, oh, the referees gave the Chiefs the game, they did not give the Chiefs the game. The Philadelphia Eagles gave up 38 points to the Chiefs. So at the end of the day, there's a referee doesn't help a team score 38 points. I understand fans are pissed off, and fans should be. But at the end of the day, referees do not give a team all of these plays or all of these points. At the end of the day, Eagles had their chances. They didn't take them. Remember the fumble Jalen Hurts had that ended up going for a touchdown the other way where he just fumbled it. There's so many different things. But, at the end of the day, this is why we watch, because it's unpredictable.
Well, I think most football fans would not say that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl because of that penalty, but I think most football fans would agree that it was an extremely disappointing way for a really good game to end. Instead of seeing the best of what the Chiefs had there in the last moment versus the best of what the Eagles had, which if I'm a betting man, I would have bet the result was going to be the same thing, which with the Chiefs scoring and winning the game because they're the Kansas City Chiefs. They're supposed to in that moment, and they had excellent field position. But it's a bummer one that for some people there will be an asterisk next to this finish, when in my opinion there shouldn't be for what you laid out. But at the same time, the frustrations that I have with that moment are, one, the hold or the contact that was called didn't really have that major of an impact on the play. And number two, the biggest issue that I have with it is it removed, now granted it's the fault of the Eagles for having the infraction, getting the penalty called against them. But to me, it removed the Eagles' chances of getting the stop that they needed. They're trying to force a field goal and have time on the clock to try and respond. A first down essentially allows the Kansas City Chiefs to run the clock out like they did. And instead of it just being the best of the Chiefs versus the best of the Eagles and the Eagles' defense not making a stop, it became, oh, the Chiefs get awarded the first down because of this penalty that you could argue doesn't necessarily need to be called in that situation. So it's overall disappointing. I don't think it has to be an argument of right versus wrong or that's the reason they lost. But ultimately, for an NFL fan like myself who had no interest, really rooting interest in this game, it was disappointing to see such an exciting game come down to a penalty flag.
Absolutely, I agree. Obviously, football fans, they want to see an exciting finish. They want to see two of the best going at it with no referee interference of that. So, Matt, before we get out of here, you kind of down my AFC predictions of last year, saying that may motivate other teams in the AFC.
You never know.
If you had to make a prediction right now for the Super Bowl next year on what two teams you think, not going with your gut, because we know the Raiders aren't going to make it, but if you had to go with two teams you think would end up in the Super Bowl next year, who would you say?
Well, if the 49ers have the same defense that they had, and they can keep a quarterback or two healthy
or
three,
three,
or 3 or 4. I like the 49ers. I think the 49ers are built to make these long runs and built to have the success defensively that you need to make these long runs. So I always will like the 49ers. in the AFC, I really believed in the Bills this year, and I thought the Bills would make it, and their window is still right there. Allen is an exciting young quarterback. I'm not saying I'm rooting for this because as a Raiders fan, this hurts my heart, but I really like what Josh Herbert and the Chargers are trying to do. So I could see the Chargers kind of being that fourth man or entering themselves in the conversation. I actually like the fact that I can't come up with any solid, confident prediction. That means that there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of teams to do well, and that makes me more interested in watching next season.
Well, Justin Herbert has been exciting. And Matt, seems like the only prediction you said is the 49ers added the NFC. So there's only one way to find out. And obviously, we'll be talking about this from here up until 354 days next year until the Super Bowl is decided on which two teams will go there. But remember, for more content on ABC 10 and more sports content, be sure to check out our sports page on ABC 10, our YouTube page right here. Also, for Kings information, be sure to check out the Locked On Kings podcast. Matt George, hosted by this guy right here. All your exclusive Kings action, you can see all of that on the Locked On Kings podcast in ABC 10.
And also, just in case, Rihanna, if you're watching, you absolutely killed it. Rihanna killed the halftime show. The halftime show was fantastic. Banger after banger after banger. Simple setup, a lot of fun, excellent camera work. I really enjoyed the halftime show. I thought Rihanna killed it.
And the fact, Matt, that she did that pregnant is amazing.
I mean, the fact that any women do anything pregnant is
I know.
amazing. They're
the real
incredible.
MVPs.
Yeah, no kidding.
Matt and I can't even dance at all. And Rihanna did all of that, pregnant. So just an amazing show. Shout out to her. And we'll see who will perform next year in the Super Bowl. At any rate, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this. Remember where you can find us for more content, abc10.com.